and welcome back to the Firearms Nation podcast. And as you can see, or if you're listening, you can't see, but this is something different. I am going to be doing a video podcast along with the audio podcast in 2023. And as we get closer to 2023, I wanted to get some out of the box. You know, I've done these in the past and put them together. And what I've noticed is that there's a lot of engagement with that. People really... I always thought that, you know, people like me always like to hear the stories and the interviews, but people like watching it. And so I'm going to give it my best effort to get this video podcast of the Firearms Nation podcast out there. And something else that I'm going to tease is that I plan to do some live shows in the future. I'm going to get the setup. I mean, we've done some live shows with Steve Anderson and with JJ, and they were really fun. It's a lot of work to do a live show, but that's something I want to do this year or upcoming year. So please come along with that journey. And to start things off, I am joined today by Julie Golob, who is, if you're in practical shooting, you know who she is. She's been on guest of this show back in 2018. She is a super nice person. I've met her before, and she, like I said, she's been on the show. She's just one of these great people to talk to, and so I'm very happy to have her on. Julie, thank you for being on the show.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. I'm great. I'm so glad to be chatting with you. I'm excited about the videos and all that. It's going to be a great year.
I you know, they say like the even, was it the even or odd start? No, I think it was the odd. I think it was the even Star Treks with the good one. So I don't know, 2023. I'm hoping that it doesn't follow the Star Trek thing, and I'm nerding out with that, so I'm going to stop right there.
I didn't know that about the Star Trek thing. That's cool.
Yeah, like the first Star Trek movie sucked, and then the second one, Wrath of Khan, was awesome, and the third one sucked, and then the fourth one was good. So yeah. Anyways, before we tune out a lot of listeners and viewers, something about Julie, if you don't know who she is, other than a very happy person who we just lost. Oh my God. There she is. She's back again. This is the beauty of internet. She is a IPSC, IPSC, which is International Practical Shooting Confederation. It is a world shooting, practical shooting club, or not club, but confederation of all these clubs. They just had the IPSC World Shoot, and she is a previous world champion. She was the U.S. Army Athlete of the Year. She's won numerous titles in IPSC and in USPSA, which is the American version of that. She's been a national champion in 7 divisions, and she was the first and only one to do that. She's also held titles in Bianchi Cup, IDPA, World Speed Shooting, which is Steel Challenge, all these great stuff. So she's been in the shooting sports for a long time. She's also a brand ambassador for Smith and Wesson, which a lot of people know of, and we're going to talk about that. So in the 4 years now, I know a lot has gone on, but you're still in the shooting circuit. Is that still something that you do?
Yeah. Life has changed a little bit for me. I'm not as active in practical shooting or defensive shooting, but really, after that 2017 World Shoot that you mentioned earlier, I really wanted to figure out what my shooting goals would be, the things that I haven't done, check off those boxes. So the past couple of years have been really focusing on Bianchi Cup. And it's one of my goals to, at some point, at a major, shoot a perfect 1920 score, which is a very, very hard thing to do. So I've got my sights, pun intended, set on that.
So Bianchi Cup, a lot of people don't know what that is. So a lot of people post videos on Instagram, of course, the gram, of the speed shooting stuff, you know, the stuff, the running and the gunning. What is Bianchi Cup for the people that don't know what that is?
So Bianchi takes the elements of practical shooting, like drawing from a holster, being able to shoot multiple targets with multiple shots, a little bit of steel, moving targets, that sort of thing, and really defines it by accuracy. So instead of shooting a course of fire as quickly as possible as you would in Steel Challenge or USPSA, in Bianchi you have a set time for every string of fire. And there are 192 shots in the course of fire, and it's really precision based. You'll shoot anything from 10 yards all the way out to 50 yards with a handgun. And it's very demanding in an accuracy way, but you also have to have those smooth elements of having a smooth, quick draw, being able to pick up your sights as you move across, different targets, that sort of thing.
So what was your best run at Bianchi, and what was your worst?
Oh gosh, that's an awful question. I've forgotten the worst.
Well, that's a good answer.
So there have been years that I've tried different things at Bianchi. One year I shot production division. That was a humbling experience. Shooting a stock polymer frame pistol. I was shooting a Glock at the time, and I don't even know if I broke 1700 out of 1920. So it's pretty epically bad, but it is much harder. So there's that. I think my best score was at a World Championships. I shot a 1916. And so it's just 4 points shy of that 1920. So we'll see. That's the goal.
How do you practice for something like Bianchi? Because it's like I said, it's a different animal altogether than the practical shooting. Practical shooting is great because you're especially either IDPA or even USPSA, depending on how you approach it. But you can even shoot IDPA and USPSA with a law enforcement rig if you're in law enforcement. Yes. And now they've added the ability to draw from appendix. So how do you? I mean, that's all basic standard shooting. How do you approach something like Bianchi?
One of the things I like about Bianchi is the fact that because you have very specific courses of fire, there's no surprises. So you can actually practice these individual stages and elements or strings of these stages to really perfect that technique down. And to give you an idea, you have an 8-inch 10 ring, so the size of an 8-inch plate, but then the X ring is only 4 inches. And your goal is to really shoot as many X's as possible. That's the tiebreaker. It's a small target, 50 yards. But when you look at each of those individual stages of Bianchi, an action pistol, which is what the sport is technically called, you can train specifically for those things. Unlike in practical shooting, where you may never ever shoot the same stage twice, unless it's a classifier that you might shoot every couple of years. So it's like Steel Challenge in the sense that you have that fixed course of fire, but because it's only 4 stages, you can really drill down and perfect that trigger control and making everything smooth and knowing your aiming points at different distances. It's a very, very critical component.
Okay. And I have tried, I'll be honest, I've tried the mover before. Mm-hmm. That's tough. First of all, you need to have a place where they actually have a mover that's Facts. Automatic.
Yes.
At the slow speed, it's easy to do. When you start cranking up the speed, it becomes almost impossible. So obviously you have a place where you can do it.
Yes. I'm located in Kansas City, so we have a very large action pistol club here. Columbia, where Bianchi Cup is held, has another huge club that's a couple of hours away. But everything else, my day-to-day practice is on all of the other things. And it's funny, if you do have a defensive or practical shooting background, the mover is actually probably the easiest course of fire for you, because it's something you're used to doing. You're used to not stopping the gun. You can see your sights moving on a target, whereas a lot of people just break and stop every time they shoot, and it's a hard thing to learn. So there are definitely ways to practice for it, like shooting groups at 10, 15, 20, and 25 yards. Once you've got that down, just adding that element of keeping the gun moving, it's really not that complicated. I would think that the hardest thing for a lot of experienced people who shoot with a timer, for example, is getting used to a visual start, because you're so used to, waiting for that first tone of the beep to make that draw really quick. You can't really do that at on the moving target event.
That, and then the drop for, what is that? Is it 25 yards with the plate rack?
So yeah, the plate rack is another tough one. So it's 10, 15, 20, and 25 yards to shoot 8-inch plates, 6 of them. And you have 2 strings at each distance. But you can go prone, which is what a lot of people do. So every distance except for the 10-yard line, you can drop down and go prone. But your prone has to be pretty quick in some cases, because if you dilly-dally, you won't have enough time.
And the only thing I really remember from watching, because it's been a long time since I've seen anybody do Bianchi Cup, is they have these glasses that have the blinders on them. Yes. Why are they putting the blinders on?
So it's funny. I don't wear blinders, but dedicated action pistol shooters don't want any distraction at all. They're in their like Zen-like mode where nothing can, if they see somebody doing something next to them on the line, because you shoot multiple competitors on a line, they don't want to see it. They don't want to know it. There's cameras. They don't want to see anything.
Okay.
Because of my experience with shooting so many different shooting sports. I mean, there's people talking, jumping, shouting, laughing, shooting, all that stuff. That doesn't necessarily bother me, but the people who are zoned in are truly trying to, focus solely on shooting, which I understand because it is a very, you think, oh, it's just 48 shots, right? Well, it's a very intense 48 shots for each course.
Are you doing it this year?
I hope to. I actually have rotator cuff surgery next week. So I am going to be recovering from that. That would be a very quick recovery to be able to be at a very competitive form for Bianchi. But I hope to. I'll be shooting a lot of weekend to prepare for it. That's for sure.
Now, are you still hitting the regular USPSA stuff, or has that slowed down since COVID?
So one of the things that I've had to change up, our oldest daughter has a rare disease. So that changed how I approached competing for a while because I had to socially distance. She's on weekly chemotherapy and that sort of stuff. So my days of like piling up on a walkthrough to get the perfect view of the targets and that sort of thing, I had to push that aside, which is another reason why I focused on action pistol because, you have your time to shoot. You're 6 feet to 12 feet away from your next competitor, and it's never an issue. So for the past few years, I haven't. That's not to say I don't miss it because it is so much fun. My husband and I have been shooting a little bit of Steel Challenge locally too, which is a great shooting course if you've never tried it, obviously. But it's every year I look at where my life is in particular, what the goals I have personally for shooting, what my sponsors would like me to do, and then where I'm going to have the most fun, which is, I think what everybody does at the end of the day, like, where can I have a great time and how can I manage this with my budget and time, that sort of thing.
Now, last time we talked, you were running for the board at the NRA, and unfortunately, you didn't win.
I made it on the board. I did. Yeah. I was there for a couple of years. Yeah.
Oh, that's what it was. My God, sorry.
I resigned.
I'm firing my research assistant. God, I thought you didn't make it. I don't know. They've had so much problems, but you're not on the board now. That's what it is.
Correct. I resigned. Yes, and basically due to the health concerns that we had at home and everything we were juggling. So I didn't feel that it was something that I would be able to dedicate the time necessary to, do the best job for the people that, asked me to represent them.
And right now with everything's going on, is the NRA still the premier advocate for gun owners in the country, you think?
I think that's a tough question to answer. Obviously, they're huge. They're a huge organization and numbers speak volumes, but I am so impressed with the smaller groups and how much they're advocating for individual freedoms, gun rights at the state level. It's impressive. And, I don't ever think that we should look at this as competition because the more people we have fighting for our rights, the better. And they, speak to different people, different attitudes and different walks of life. And I think that's very important. So, is it the best? I don't have an answer to that, but, I think that people doing their research and finding groups that they think align with their views and their thoughts and their, aspirations for what they want to see locally and nationally is important.
And I can see that you're wearing Smith and Wesson.
I am focused
on your jacket. So you're still with Smith and Wesson after all these years. How many years has it been?
Gosh, it's been it's 2015, so it's been a while. A long time. I can't do math. Yeah.
8 years, something like that. Depends on when you signed up with them.
Yeah. Well,
because we're going to 2023.
Yeah. It's been a good run.
That is a good run.
Oh, no, it's not 2015. 2005. I've lost a decade already.
Wow.
Oh my goodness. How embarrassing.
So
no,
we each have one now. Okay, good.
No,
yes. So like 20, 25 years almost. 23
Almost.
years. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
23 years. That's impressive. What's your daily carry then?
I carry a 4-inch Shield Plus.
Okay. And they
So,
just came out with the Equalizer.
yes,
So what is
yes.
the Equalizer besides a really cool TV show?
Uh,
Which I'm dating myself because a lot of people, they only know the movie with Denzel.
yeah,
There was
yeah.
a British one with some British actor in it. Yeah.
Wow, I didn't even know that. So the best way to explain it is if you are familiar with the Shield Easy platform, it's like an Easy in that it's easy to rack, easy to use. It comes with an Ablula loader with it. Um, it's optics ready, has a rail, but it takes Shield Plus magazines. So the original Shield Easy was simply 10 rounds, and that's all you could fit in it. And now we've bumped that up. Actually, it may have been 10 rounds for 30 super carry, but even less for 9. And with this new integration and engineering with Smith and Wesson, the Equalizer is basically capable of using a 10, a 13, and a 15 round Shield Plus magazine. So the capacity concerns that a lot of people had with the Shield Easy are completely answered with the Equalizer.
So I noticed in the picture that you posted, it has a grip safety on it.
It
Is
does.
that all of them have that?
All of the Equalizers has that. Because it's like a Shield Easy, it is actually not a striker fired pistol. It is a hammer fired pistol internal. And so that grip safety is necessary in order to, meet the requirements of having a safe pistol. And it's also something that when Smith and Wesson did the market research for the Shield Easy, they learned that the consumer that would be most likely to purchase something that's easy to use and easy to rack, handle, wanted as many safeties as possible. So that is transitioned over to that line, and it's neat because when you think about it, a lot of people really struggle manipulating the slide on these higher capacity compacts and micro compacts. I mean, the tolerances are so fine. You've got really, really tight mags. It's really, really hard to rack sometimes. So this allows you to have the capacity in that size pistol without those types of issues.
So it just was announced, and a lot of these companies will announce right before SHOT Show in anticipation, to get the market going about it so people can see it at SHOT Show. But SHOT Show's been kind of hit or miss since COVID. I mean, that really devastated the show. And then I know last year everyone was forced to wear masks, and this year is the first year without masks.
So far,
are you
right?
going? Yeah.
I won't be going. I'll still be slung up in with the shoulder
Oh, that's
surgery.
right. You had
So,
your surgery.
yeah. And indoor groups like that is really hard for me to attend. So
I bet. Is Smith and Wesson going? Because I know some gun companies now are not going to these major shows simply because I know they say it's over $1 million just to set up a booth and to bring all the personnel and all the equipment out there, and they're just finding that the return on it's just not important anymore.
yeah, I'm pretty sure Smith is going. I haven't heard otherwise. I think that, I mean, I guess it's just me. I love SHOT Show. I always have loved SHOT Show. I've been going for, I think my first one was in '99 in Atlanta, was it maybe? But it's a great way to network, communicate, and I think it's good for our industry to showcase everyone all together. So as much as the challenges, of COVID and everything else, and having to have to adapt to, Las Vegas rules, regulations, and all that, I think it's still worthwhile to go if you're in the industry for sure. I will miss it.
I miss it. I remember it was actually NRA show. When did COVID hit? 2020.
Yeah.
So it was supposed to be April of 2020. I was super excited to go to that show because I couldn't make it to SHOT that year, but I was going to NRA, got the ticket, got the hotel, had all these interviews lined up, and then they canceled it, and it was devastating. And then since then, it's just been to travel. I normally don't like traveling to begin with, and now with all these rules and regulations, and people are just on edge with it, it makes it difficult. And then to go to Vegas and have more problems. I kind of personally, I know I'll get some blowback from it. I love going to Vegas, but I wouldn't mind seeing it like how NRA does it. They go to different places. But I get it. People like go to Vegas because you can gamble, you can have fun, all that. It's different for a lot of people. But I kind of
Yeah.
liked it when it was back in Florida, obviously because I live in Florida. But
Yeah.
yeah, we're having a cold front. It's about 70 degrees today. So
Oh, poor you. I
yeah,
think
poor me.
it's 21 here today.
I've had enough of that. So you got the equalizer, and then I saw you were shooting MMP with an optic. Have you gone that full carry optics route?
Oh, yes. Yeah. I think that's one of my favorite divisions. If I have the chance to go shoot Steel Challenge or even a USPSA match here and there, that's the gun I'll pick up because one, it's just the gun will always run, right? It's a production gun. And then you have that benefit of having an optic on there. It's just so much fun and easier to shoot. I really like it.
So you've been doing this. Obviously, you've been with Smith and Wesson for 20 some years. On your website, it's your logo has from 1991 to now as your shooting career. So you've been doing this for a while. Do you think it's now easier for women shooters to be in the sport and to compete into the sport?
Oh, absolutely. I think that social media really changed things for women in the shooting sports, especially by showcasing women. They were able to be exposed to more women using firearms. They'd see women shooting in their feed. Husbands would share or spouses would share information about it. So I think social media has been a huge help for that. And the shooting sports are a welcoming place. I mean, I started out as a little ranger officer with my dad when I was little, and it was a place I loved, and to see that so many people are discovering it and enjoying it, and it's not like an underground kind of quiet thing is really neat.
And I just want to tell people too that Julie's in her car because she does have a place to live. She's not living out of her car.
No.
But that's because of where she is. It's easier to get internet. And here's a little audio fact. If you don't have a good soundproof room, your car is an excellent place to record anything because it's pretty soundproof in there, unless
There
you're
you
next
go.
to a construction site. But there you go. So that's why you're in there, is because you wanted to have quality sound for this show. And I thank you for that.
My pleasure.
So something else that is new, because you were just talking about, people posting videos. Smith and Wesson has their Gunsmarts program which has different levels. So explain to the audience, what is Gunsmarts and how did it come about?
So it's one of those things. We had an influx of new marketing people at Smith and Wesson, and they really wanted to come up with ways to share the how to get started in shooting sports or how to get involved in actually going to a range, and provide resources so that when you purchased a firearm, you could just go to the website and learn all of the things that you would need to learn in order to have a successful time. So we got together and we developed the first couple of series, and it's obviously working with my teammate Jerry Mitchell is a ton of fun. And it basically covers from the very, very basics of like how to rack a pistol, what to expect when you go to a range for the first time, to much more involved things. So like for this iteration or season, we talk about drills that are useful for shooting rifles or pistols, and it's kind of an evolution. So it's kind of a one-stop shop, if you will, for learning about firearms and shooting sports. And it's not just Smith and Wesson stuff, but it's been a fun thing to be able to be a part of that and see that it's well received.
Now, do they come up with the content, or do they ask you what you want to talk about?
So it's definitely a teamwork concept. We make our suggestions of what we think would work well, but they also do a lot of research, like, wow, drills do really well on the internet. Can you do some of these, kind of thing, and provide that feedback. Or the questions that they get asked the most through customer service, like, hey, how do I do this? Or what do I need to know about this? If it's shooting related or new shooter related, we can answer those in a Gunsmarts video.
Now, do people reach out to you individually? Do other shooters, people who are coming up in the ranks, do they contact you individually and and ask your opinion or ask for help, or do you just
Sometimes, usually it's parents that reach out the most.
really?
It's how do I get my kids started? And I know that you started when you were young. What is the best course? Because I think that, obviously there are different ways to look at it. You can go full on dance mom, right? Or you can, want to make sure that your children are proficient and safe, but don't want it to be something that they feel pressure or it's no longer fun. So I get a lot of those questions, or how soon to start your kids shooting or talking about firearm safety. That's probably more common than, like, hey, how did I do on the stage, Julie? Kind of thing.
So if someone did ask you, how do you get your kids into it, what would you tell them?
So it's usually a much more complicated answer. At first I'd ask how old they are, what their
So say they're
experience level
about
is.
13, 14 years old.
So for that, I would say there's a lot of great programs out there. 4-H has a lot of good stuff if you're not willing or able to put in the time for it. Rimfire Challenge and Steel Challenge are excellent. They have scholastic programs. And what I really like about those two sports in general is the connection that kids have and families have with one another. So it's not just like me when I was 14 going to the range with my dad. I was the only kid there. And in this situation, these scholastic programs and Rimfire Challenge, you go to a match and you see the same kids every single time. So these friendships build and this connection, they form teams and compete. So it kind of takes a different approach than if you have a child that wants to be the next JJ Rakaza. That's obviously something a little different. You're going to need to, take some classes and spend a lot of time and think about things thoughtfully about recoil management when you're young and how it'll affect you later. All of that stuff comes into play.
How early do you think exposure to firearms should be? I mean, you can use yourself as a reference, but just for the general public.
I think that exposure to firearms safety should happen very small. I think that it's really never too soon to start that. As far as actual shooting is concerned, that's an individual thing. I'm a firm believer, and people may have a problem with it, but I believe that if you don't know and understand the basic rules of firearms safety, then you shouldn't be shooting. And so, just having fun, pulling a trigger on the range might be neat and everything, but there are implications involved, and it's something that you should think about. It should be an educational component as well.
So for people that don't know this about Julie, she is an author, and she wrote a manifesto on shooting called Shoot, which covers pretty much everything. And we talked about it in the last podcast, but she also wrote a children's book called
Toys, Tools, Guns, and Tools.
With the T's, Toys, Tools, Guns, and Tools. So what was the genesis of writing that book, and just describe what it is about?
Sure. So a lot of people would ask me, whether through social media or email, about firearm safety for their children. And there are a lot of great resources out there. Project Child Safe has a lot of information. The NRA has their Eddie Eagle program. And everyone is universally teaching, stop, don't touch, go get an adult. But with my own kids, having young daughters, I wanted a resource that went a little bit deeper, that actually showed that there were different types of people who own firearms, and go a little bit deeper into the why we don't touch them, the important parts of a firearm to not touch, the trigger, to be aware of the muzzle, all of that, just to take it a next step further. So that's what the book focuses on. But again, it's for very young children, from 3 to 8, depending on their level of understanding. And it's a good gateway for a lot of parents to break the ice, especially if they don't have guns. So it's a simple thing. They don't have to show a firearm to illustrate the point. They can just point to the pictures in the book.
Is there any other books coming in the future?
Oh, well, I don't know.
Maybe? A cookbook? Because I see you cooking all the time.
This is something that I've been wanting to do, and I've actually started it. I've compiled a bunch of recipes, but I've never been able to have the time to put it together. I don't know, maybe with the shoulder surgery thing and my one-handed typing, it'll finally get done. But I would love to be able to do that at some point. That would be really neat.
Besides your surgery, is it going to be after the holidays? the surgery?
No, it's right before the holidays, so
Oh
it'll be
no.
single unwrapping hand stuff. But that's okay. I look at it this way: the earlier it is, the faster I can recover to have a full year. So,
That's
and
good.
I'll improve my one-handed shooting. So that's great.
There you go. Listen,
Yeah,
it's only in the mind what limits you.
right.
So speaking of the holidays, I'd love to get your opinion on, giving a gun as a gift. What are your thoughts on that?
You know, there's something special about being able to gift a firearm. I mean, I remember when my mother saved up money forever because my dad always wanted a Sharps rifle, like in Quigley Down Under, and we gifted that to him as a gift. But it's a very complicated thing. And so, one, there are legal ramifications of it. If you are planning to gift a firearm, you have to make sure that your state allows you to make that transfer. You are required by law to only transfer a firearm to someone that you know can actually have it. So that's another additional thing. And there's something about when you just buy somebody like, oh, my wife needs a pistol, so I'm going to give her this one. And there's something about that I just wish that instead of people going out and doing that, they would instead go to a gun store with their spouse or their significant other and say, hey, we're going to try a bunch of different things so you can pick what you want. So I think that, if you are thinking of giving a gift of a firearm to someone special, there are better ways to go about it than just sticking something under the tree.
So what are Julie's picks for the best gift for, I know you want them to go to the store, but if they went to the store and they don't know what they're looking at, and sometimes gun store people don't have the best interest of the customer in mind, what is Julie's recommendations for a woman shooter and then the opposite for a male shooter?
As in firearms?
Yes.
Okay. So, I think that looking at an array of handguns can be overwhelming. So if you can make several trips, this is the way to go about it. So I would say that looking at 4 different pistols in each time and be upfront with the person behind the desk. Say, hey, this is going to be a long process. I'm going to be purchasing a firearm, but I want to make sure I have the right one. And don't feel that pressure. And maybe they won't feel that pressure to kind of like, oh, this one's really good and this one's on sale or there's a rebate with this one. And handle each one. And the things you want to pay attention to is how the grip fits your hand. You should know how to get a proper grip. You should look at how all of the controls fit you, if you can reach them. If you're left-handed, this is something that's a big concern. And then also if you can manipulate the slide. If you can't do these things, then this may alter which firearms are right for you or may put them in a ranking system. And then the next time you go back, remember which ones that you liked, add a couple more, and get a feel for a different variety. Obviously a great option is the equalizer for the racking capability, the ease of use, and the size, but it may not be the right firearm for a lot of people, and that's such a personal thing. So that would be my recommendation there. So it really works for both men and women. I think for guys, it's probably the focus should probably be a bit more on the controls themselves and how, if they're going to be wanting to reload quickly or if they like the way a thumb safety feels or doesn't feel. For women, I think racking the slide is much more of a concern for most women. And then ease of use, something that they're going to be able to take care of on their own. So the more complicated something is, it's obviously one of the reasons why so many people recommend, J-frame revolvers to women. Be like, look, it's so simple. You can use it. They open it, close it, shoot, right? But it's not for everyone. Not poo-pooing on revolvers because I own several and I like them for certain things, but it may not be the perfect setup for you.
And then the nice thing about the M&P is that it has the interchangeable back straps. I guess because of the grip safety, the equalizer won't have interchangeable back straps.
It doesn't. And it's a fixed size grip. So with full size M&Ps, yes, you do have the interchangeable back straps, whether it's a polymer frame or a metal frame. And, that's a big deal for a lot of women. I think that one of the things people underestimate, regardless of whether they're male or female, is hand size, specifically the distance from the web of the hand to the full pad of the trigger finger, which is where you're going to be able to reach. And if you can't reach that successfully and you can't have a smooth, consistent pull on a trigger, it's going to be very difficult for you to overcome that and learn how to shoot a handgun well. Likewise, if you have huge hands and you're trying to shoot something very small, or you know you're going to be wearing gloves, then you may have a hard time. You might get a little finger cramp because you can't. It's too scrunched up in that trigger guard.
What CCW safe is very important because it deals with basically carrying concealed insurance. And I know that product. A lot of the people I've spoken to on this show are, I guess, ambassadors of that product. So tell me your association with CCW Safe, how that came about.
Absolutely. They reached out to me to talk to me about the importance of being able to share their message and the importance of the peace of mind that's involved when you're carrying a firearm. And it's important to know that CCW Safe is not actually an insurance plan specifically, but it is a way to ensure that you have the necessary prepared legal components should you be involved in some sort of incident with your firearm. And so being able to cover those costs, being able to have a critical response team there to help you in those situations is absolutely huge. And it's another question that I get quite often is, I'm nervous about carrying a firearm because I need to have insurance for it. What happens if that happens? And so being able to share CCW Safe with them is really great. What I love about working with the guys on the team is the fact that, they have such experience with it. They know personally what it's like to deal with these challenges. They have so many people who have law enforcement backgrounds and military backgrounds that it's such a useful thing for the average person who doesn't have that experience. And so to be able to see their resources, tap into their knowledge, especially in a time of need, is, again, a huge peace of mind. And it's just like anything else. When you think about owning a firearm, well, do you have a place to store that firearm safely? Are you going to be carrying that firearm? Do you have a plan in place should you need to use it? What's going to happen there? So it's all the little things that you don't think about sometimes when you're ready to go buy a gun, but it's absolutely a critical component.
Yeah, it's one of the things that Andrew Branca talks about all the time and that's the lawyer that I've had on the show before, the law of self-defense, is that we spend a lot of time preparing for that moment where we're going to use the firearm to protect our loved ones or to protect someone else. What do we do about the whole thing that's going to happen afterwards? And
Right.
no one really thinks that part of it, and that's why having something like this is really important. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, and obviously I can show you that I've been wrong, but I think with CCW Safe, they provide the legal, they cover the fees and everything while you're in trial, as opposed to the other ones. Some of them only if you are acquitted do they pay the cost afterwards, which, I mean, you could be mortgaging your house 5 times over just to get through one trial like this.
Right. It's important that when you're researching anything like this to read that fine print. Like, I'm going to spend X amount of dollars on something that is going to make me feel better, but at the end, when you really need it, it's not going to cover it, right? These are the important components, and that's what I love about CCW Safe is they're so clear and upfront about this information. They have tons of different plans. Your spouse can be covered under a CCW Safe program, and it's a small investment, but again, it's that peace of mind component that really comes into play. It's just like having any sort of medical insurance. Again, it's not insurance, but it's a security in place for you so that if you do have some sort of altercation come up, you're going to be okay.
With your surgeries, obviously, your surgery coming up, and then, you're obviously the most important thing you can do is take care of your child. There's nothing greater than that.
Yeah.
And I hope that all works out.
Thanks.
You're welcome. What are you planning for in the next coming years? What is in store for Julie?
It's been a wild ride. It's been so much fun. My journey with firearms has taken me so many different places around the world. I do have a few competition goals. Obviously, I mentioned some of those there in the show. But I'm looking forward to shooting as a family. I mentioned that my husband is shooting more often and competing more instead of just, using a firearm professionally. And my girls are very interested in it. So we've been traveling to a lot of matches together as a family, and I'm looking forward to the day that we all shoot our first competition, all of us together. I think that'll be a lot of fun. So I'm excited for that. My littlest one is going to be 10 next year, so she's chomping at the bit. And my oldest, she's 14, and she's competed with me a little bit in rimfire stuff. But it'll be really, really neat to be able to showcase that it's something you can indeed do as a family. So that's what I'm looking
That sounds great. And you're doing all that cooking. I see it on your Instagram. So you're on almost every social media that I'm on. So where can people find you?
It's easy. JulieGolob.com has all my social links, or if you use @JulieGolob, JulieGolob, you should be able to find me pretty easy. It's a pretty unique name. So
Yes, it is. Well, I want to thank you for bearing with me on our somewhat first video podcast. I mean, the audio will be perfect and flawless as it always is. Plugging myself there, but thank you again, because it's great catching up with you. It's great seeing you, because obviously I'm not going to the shows. You're not going to shows. We don't bump into each other, but it's good to see you. Good to see that you're healthy, and have a great holiday.
You too. It's been such a pleasure chatting with you. I really appreciate it. And good luck with all of the things in 2023.
Thank you.